and she's been sharing stories of hope and faith for many years on TV, and more recently connecting with you through her podcast. It's called Good Taste for the Soul. Longtime TV personality Tanji Patton joins us this morning with more. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you. You've been on the podcast.
Yes, I have. Check that episode out. Very, very fun. And normally we have you in the kitchen doing all things food. But this morning we're focusing on some great stories. Let's talk a little bit about the podcast and what goes into putting it all together.
Well, it's a personal journey, and it started, I've shared the story, it really started as a message from God to use my voice. And this started about 2 years ago. And we were in the midst of doing the TV series, right? And the voices got louder and louder. So it's faith-based, but we still do a lot of food and wine segments, and because everybody has a story. So it's about, yes, we'll go in and take you to a new restaurant and whatnot, but the people behind the restaurant are small business owners, often families, and they all have a story.
That's so true. That is the true storyteller in you speaking right there. All right, let's dig into it. We've got a couple of podcasts that we're highlighting this morning, including a new one that's dropping today. But let's start with John Burke. Tell me about him.
John Burke, fascinating man. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's written several best-selling books, but the one I focused on was called Imagine Heaven, and this book focuses on near-death experiences.
Okay.
John interviewed hundreds, more than 1,000 people all over the world who have experienced near-death experiences, and some of these people were legally dead 10 minutes, 20 minutes. The stories are quite fascinating. All walks of life, all parts of the world, and the stories have a lot of the similarities we've heard, the bright light and whatnot, but some, especially the folks that described what was going on in an operating room, for example, who were blind.
Wow.
And saw exact details.
Okay, well, here's a clip from that podcast.
Not in their cultural background necessarily. They blind can see and report the same things. And third, when they're out of their body, they consistently can, when they're resuscitated, report observations that can be checked out and verified.
Very interesting, and you can listen to the entire thing on Tanji's podcast. Let's stick with the same theme. You also talked to Gary Harrington. Tell me about that.
Yeah, interesting man. So Gary is some 35 years he spent in the military, right? In very dangerous life and death situations. Special Forces, Marines, Delta Force, CIA, a very unusual military career in that he spans so many different special forces elements. Gary and I are about the same age. Had not met the man until we did the interview. We did it in Austin. And he asked to pray before the interview. And that interview has always stood out in my mind because that was one of those moments where he and I are similar. I don't want to speak for him, but we're same age and on a spiritual track that been Christians for years, but it's really accelerated.
Yeah.
And he's in that position too. And there was a real special presence of the Holy Spirit when we did that interview.
I love that. Well, here's just a tiny bit from the interview.
But every time I had a failure, through Gary's strength and Gary's willpower, Gary rebuilt himself into something successful. God tore down every single one. Delta Force, first marriage, second marriage, good success in the agency, because they weren't his plan, and I didn't rely on his plan and his form, because he has his purpose.
Definitely something you're going to want to listen to the entire thing.
And since then, I've gotten to know his wife through emails, and they live in the Washington, D.C. area. And so that in and of itself is an interesting part of his story, because they're coming to this faith journey in an area where they're seeking others doing the same.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. He's a fascinating man. So grateful for his service.
I can't believe all the different people you talk to, all the stories you hear. And I know we've got a special podcast is coming out today, and it focuses on the recoveries and the efforts in the Hill Country after last year's floods.
Yes, rebirth and renewal happening in the beautiful Texas Hill Country. You know, the floods were so devastating. Estimates say that some 50% or more of the natural vegetation along the river in Kerr County was wiped out. Think about that, more than 50%. And I met a gentleman there that is an environmentalist, a land consultant, and his job is to help people put the land back the way nature intended it, right?
Yeah.
And so he travels all over the state consulting with landowners. He's working with so many of them. They're handing out free seeds, helping them plant trees. But we talked about the river, and he is so optimistic. And if you haven't been back to the river, yes, it's hard at times, but there is so much good news
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can find.
Here's a clip from that.
People want to appreciate and enjoy their river, but you don't want to love it to death, which means you have to let it, you still have to let it be a river. You can't let it be like a city park or like a Houston landscape. It's supposed to be wild and woolly and with access areas.
That's part of the allure, all these generations, right? It was beautiful.
Definitely a story of hope right there. And I love that you are out and about. You're talking to so many different people. You went to the river to see what things look like.
Shelley, I don't do well behind a desk.
I know.
You should know that.
I know. And that comes out today, right?
Yeah, it's out right now. You know, a shout out to Steve Nelly. He drove, I didn't know this until after we did the interview, 2.5 hours to do our interview with us. This is an incredibly dedicated man to preserving the river. His family goes back generations, and you'll hear his whole story and the efforts of what he's doing on the river. It's a beautiful, it's good news for all of us as we're coming up on a very heavy anniversary.
I love that. Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the stories. Guys, you should definitely check out Tanji's podcast. Give her a subscribe, right? Go to YouTube. All you need to do is search up Good Taste for the Soul. You can also see Tanji online. She's got an entire website dedicated to everything that she does. But do subscribe to the podcast. It is Good Taste for the Soul with Tanji Patton on YouTube.
And a
Check her
shameless
out.
input, sorry, instincts don't die. On Instagram, you can follow us
her on Instagram.
Good Taste TV, and that'll keep you up to date on new episodes on the podcast.
Love it.